Good morning. It's just after 10 UTC. Going to go through Bitcoin. Yeah. So first thing to look at is economic calendar. Nothing really crazy to look at except for Thursday. Wednesday tomorrow, we've got some stuff coming in. FOMC minutes in the evening. Crude oil, not a crazy thing. But like I said, Thursday and Friday it starts to ramp up. We have the all important American CPI and then PPI on Friday. So watch that. It comes out 1 hour before the New York Stock Exchange opens. Looking at long short ratios for Bitcoin, generally speaking, it's been coming down. So more long than short over the time from the weekend until now. We're seeing an increase here locally of longs, which isn't great, especially since we've broken some local structure back to the downside, which we can go through. So keep an eye on that. As this thing gets more long, it kind of incentivizes us a drive back to the downside to retest key levels. Looking over the funding rates as well, definitely bearish funding rates, very positive funding rates. BitMEX is an outlier, but generally speaking, we're seeing 0.1 on Binance, Bybit as well, reasonably high, especially even on the USD pairs. So outside of BitMEX as an outlier, generally, open interest weighted funding rate, that's definitely bearish, incentivizing more downside moves. Getting into some more nitty gritty about the volume, the liquidity. So this move up did two key things. One, it did grab some local liquidity. We actually had a nice move up into structure, but now above 64.4, we've got a decent amount of short liquidity, which is now, because of this upside drive, has linked to the older liquidity above 66K. So this is actually good in kind of the longer run. However, this also means that same thing is happening to the downside. We're getting really dangerously close to linking stuff under 60K. So I would expect any loss of these lows at 60K, and we do a full sweep down to 58 at least, just because that block is good before we start getting into a liquidity pocket there below us around 57. Call it 57.7. So right now, like I said, you've broken some upside structure with that upside move. We saw the break that closed late yesterday evening, on the 1 hour, closing poorly, failing to regain, bearish retesting low structure of the high, and new lows created. So we have broken that kind of uptrend locally, at least on the 1 hour and on the 4 hour, with key levels to regain above us effectively. So any secondary losses, you should see continuation down at 61K, potentially all the way back down to the lows at 60K. Looking over at trading light, we'll go through. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. So, looking first off at the 1 hour TPO, we're right on it. We've lost it from yesterday. You're potentially going to continuation loss it here at 62.5. You need to get back above it. Open interest is increasing in longs, as we saw as well on the long short ratios. So this is, again, not positive. People are trying to hold this really effectively. The first major gain would be up here around 62.8. That would be effectively a high time frame level to gain back to go retest high structure. But for right now, it is breaking down. Open interest, like I said, growing, as well as liquidations actually pretty minimal outside of yesterday. That kind of like that spike up we did around about the New York Open effectively grabbed a lot of that liquidity, and then closing poorly actually lost the upside structure there. Looking specifically at the heat map, where orders are being placed in. So this is just showing effectively 300 plus Bitcoin positions as bright yellow. We've got some stuff stacking below us, which is fine and dandy. Again, we're going to see some moves back down lower if we see some continuation losses here under the local lows at 62.2 on the 1 hour. If we go up to the 4 hour or something like that, then we're looking a little bit more, I guess, cynical in the market, since again that 4 hour structure we've just created now definitely lost some upside drive, some upside structure that we want to see regained at around 62, call it 62.7, 62.8, like I said before. So yeah, we don't want any continuation losses. I would expect that any continuation loss of like the lows here at 61.8, kind of like we talked about yesterday, that loss would force us to come back down and retest the lows, as we're also seeing long orders being pulled below us. That being said, a lot of things being heavily stacked around 58K. So this block came in on the 5th pretty aggressively, with thousands of Bitcoin orders still stacked in place to potentially hold that low. Finally, looking over at trading view for the general plan here. No major changes really from what I posted on Twitter yesterday. This is the key one here in my mind. Again, we had that local SR flip, July Q3 62.8. That's going to be that's a key level by all terms. Like any regain of that should force a retest higher in the structure, October Q4, and any gain that regains this stuff, we want to see a retest higher that actually makes a new high, as there is a decent amount of liquidity, technically all the way up to 65K, as we saw in the liquidations chart. This continuation loss here is very simple. We're at 62K. This is where we want to see hold. 62K down to 61.8. Effectively, any loss of this, you must go lower. Likely to get retests of start of move structure, March, May, potentially all the way down to 60.6. I would expect that if we do start losing this low, given that there's liquidity below us, that continuation drive should force us deeper into like that 58K zone. For right now, just watch it. It is breaking down, losing levels. We can easily regain some priority if we start regaining like July Q3. It's technically still doing higher highs and higher lows on a higher time frame. However, this local failure is pretty significant from what it did late last night, early this morning, effectively flipping what was support now into resistance here at the July Q3. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be major for holding for continuation move. Not super interesting price action. You're in a localized range from 62K up to about 62.8. It's good enough just to grab 100Xs and potentially some 50X liquidation levels. Outside of that, it's building local liquidity. Got some local priority down. You want to see regains to kind of invalidate that down move, but stay on your toes. Watch the markets. Everyone's still pretty fearful, pretty panicky regarding escalations in the Middle East, and now the US about to get smacked with like a second devastating storm in like less than a week or two. So yeah, keep an eye on it, and catch you tomorrow. Peace.